Why do I have all these video players and no girlfriend? Well, you're going to find out today on Tech Tips. Today on Tech Tips, we're going to talk about the video players that you are likely to encounter in your immersive experience, what has come before, and some of the options and other little players you may not know about. Now, this is not meant to be a comprehensive every video player in the world, because there are a lot of interesting, third-party, unknown, networkable, proprietary, all sorts of different types of video players that are out there. This is meant to be more of the ones you are likely to encounter and the ones you're familiar with, and maybe a few you are not. So let's start off with this. In the early days of escape rooms and things like that, this is probably what you may have encountered here. This was kind of a generic, no-branded media player with buttons. Came with buttons. It had these ports here that had 2 buttons each, and so you could add more buttons to it. This is the one that Fright Prop sold for a long time, and I believe this is also similar to the model that High-Res Designs had back as far as 2019, if I remember correctly. And so, as you can see here, it had all of the proper flavors: VGA, HDMI, optical, has your audio out, CVBS, and other things like that. And so this was your triggerable video player. Now, this did not do what we have come to call seamless looping. Whenever you'd push the button, there would be a bit of a black screen and it would jump to whatever video you pressed. And this is how things were for a long time. And then came the Sprite Player. If you spend any amount of time on any of the forums and people asking about needing a triggerable video player, this is usually what people will recommend. You will see all the people recommend things like Raspberry Pis and things like that as well, but this is the main guy here. Now, this is the Sprite 4K, which is more recent. The original version was 1080 max, right? So this is to be a little more up with the times, as you can see here. And inside, you will end up getting the media player here. This is the player box like this. You end up with these wires here that are composite RCA, so you can run your audio. If you don't want to, for some reason, do it off HDMI, you can do your audio and video off of this. You have the dongle here that allows you to trigger video here like this. And of course, if you have a whole bunch of these that you've bought over the years, then you probably have about 500 of these remotes laying around right here. And they all affect the same players. If you have 5 players, 1 remote will trigger them all, which can be a fun challenge and a little frustrating at times, but it's neither here nor there. So that is essentially what the Sprite Player gets you right there. And this is what is known as a seamless looping media video players. So what that means is you'll have a looping file that just sits there ambiently going over and over and over again. And usually it's a static file, right? Or it could be an animated file, but you need a point of entry on the video here, so when you trigger the file, it can seamlessly go into it. You don't want the video to cut off mid whatever and jump into another scene or something like that. So generally, these are used for a lot of like the moving portraits you'll see, where it'll look like a person in a painting, and all of a sudden it comes to life, does a scare, and then goes back to that same position, and it just keeps looping over again like that. And these take USB or micro SD. The previous versions took full-size SD cards. And in the back, you see we have our HDMI, you have an optical port, you have your audio, video, AV, and back here is your I/O. And this is your I/O, here, this little plug. And the instructions tell you which things to trigger it up depending on what you're doing. If you're using a button, then you connect it to certain ports. If you're using a proximity sensor or a PIR or something like that, passive infrared motion sensor, then you wire it up differently, but the instructions, I'll tell you how to do all that right there. And you can plug that in right into this, and it will trigger, used to be just 1 video, right? So you'd have your looping video and 1 triggerable video. There was a firmware update a while back that now allows you to incrementally trigger videos. So the first trigger will trigger 001. The next trigger will trigger 002. So you could kind of mix up the videos if you want to, which is really neat. So that is the Sprite Player. And later on, we're going to talk about some of the add-ons and other things that other people have created for this and get on with that. But I want to talk about the other video player that you might be familiar with. So this is a Brightsign player, and this is a fair upgrade from the Sprite Player. It can do many of the same things, just in a different way. It has a proprietary system backend programming thing you have to learn, and there is a good video for that on frightprops.com, and I will show you an example of it myself here at the end of this, but I just kind of want to show off. There are a lot of different types of Brightsign players. The cheapest version of it starts around $300-ish, and they go up from there into the thousands of dollars, but these are generally used on high-end things that need to be ran, like multiple monitors and weird interactions, and also they have Ethernet capability, which allows you to monitor what's going on with them. You can there's a very deep rabbit hole of stuff these Brightsign players can do. I don't think a lot of us probably use the full functionality of these things, but I'm sure there are places that absolutely do. And this is an older model here. You can find a lot of these older models here, the LS3s, on eBay and stuff like that, and get them a little cheaper. I believe they're up to LS5, HD5. There's a bunch, like I said, a bunch of different versions. Here is an older version here. This was, I don't even know which, this is so old they weren't labeling this one. There it is. It's an HD2. This is an HD2 right here. So this is how old this version is here. It has, not only does it have HDMI, but it also has VGA here on the side here. So that's how old this guy is. Now, most of these do have the ability to just be triggered by GPIO. GPIO, of course, are the same type of input pins, inputs, outputs that you would have on a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino, and it's just triggerable, yeah? And this version uses USB-C, and you have to get a separate little dongle for this one here. There are other versions that have the GPIO built in to the back already as well, so it just depends. Again, you do your research and look into what you need and how much you want to spend on something like this. The main difference between these and the Sprite Player is these do not have flash media, which means it's less likely for your video files to become corrupted. That is one thing that I see a lot of people don't understand about the Sprite players, is that your USB stick or your SD card can become corrupt because those have a finite read-write capability, right? So let's say you put a 16 gig card in there, those won't last as long as, say, a 32 gig card, especially because they're looping, and so they're constantly reading and writing, and that's why they suggest for your looping file to be much longer, so it's not just eating up your read-writes constantly like that. But that's neither here nor there. The medias are stored on the devices themselves, and so that's one of the other main differences in these here. So real quick, I just want to show you that I plug this in here like this, and now I can trigger my files from here, from these screw terminals. And like I said, the other versions of these have the screw terminals built in. And if you find some of these older models on eBay and around like that, these work just as well. The difference is the GPIO pins here are triggered via these connectors like this, and you have to get a little bit creative. As you can see here, these have been connected to an Ethernet port like this, but you could just connect these wires to a relay or something like that, and the information about what goes where and how to do all that is available online. But if you have trouble finding it, feel free to email us and we'll do our best to help you with that. So let's take a look now at the Brightsign interface. All right, this is the Bright Author program here. This is called Bright Author Classic. There is a Bright Author Connected, which you don't really need unless you're doing some more like cloud-based stuff, which you probably aren't. So this is the Bright Author program right here. This is the one you want to get. And the way this works is pretty easy. Like I said before, there's a very good video on frightprops.com that we'll link to in the description below. But I'm going to kind of run you through the just quick and dirty of it here. This is under the Edit tab. You'll see here you want to click on Interactive. And that gives you a play field here to mess with stuff. So here are two videos. These are some of the living portraits by Atmos Effects. This is the looping file right here, and I drop that in, and I drop this here below it like that. These buttons up here all represent kind of the things that you can do with the player. The ones that you'll likely be dealing with are these here. These are the GPIO buttons. As you can see, there are 8 of them. So depending what you need triggered and when, this is what you're going to use. So I'm going to click the button 0 and then drag from the bottom to this, like this, bunk. And now whenever you hit button 0, GPIO down event, it will transition seamlessly to this video right here, like this. Now, you do have to tell it to go back to this file, right? And the way to do that is you go to your media end event button here, and you drag just into nothing, boink. You get a pop-up screen like this, and you're going to want to go to transition to new state, and then you'll pick whatever the video is here. In this case, it's the buffer wall like this. And as you can see, there are other things here: return to prior state, remain on current state, etc., etc., etc. There's all this advanced stuff here, but for what we're doing right now, you go into this, and that is it. That is how you get from this video, this looping file, to a triggered file, back around to this, like that. And like I said, there are a bunch of other things here. There's like timeout events that allow you to tell it to go to a different video after a certain amount of time, like seconds here. Transition new state. If I had another video here, I could have it do that. There are a handful of options and programming tricks you can do with this to have your video player do a lot of fun stuff. But I would focus on the basics first, and this is about as basic as it gets. So that is how you use the Brightsign player. Now, there are other types of media players that are out there, and this is an example of one of them here. This is the Numi 4K. This is a more relative newcomer to the scene here. You can find these on places like Amazon and things like that. And if you just need a media player, if you just need a box to have a video looping, just doing its own thing as an ambient type of video, then these are fine. They're about $30 to $50 depending on which brand you buy. There are other versions of these out here, but there's a reason I bring this one up in particular. So they have a few different variants of this, and this is the just Numi 4K, but there is a Numi Lite, 4K Lite. That one has single video trigger capability. It's interesting. They just have this one random. I think it's seamless looping, if I remember correctly. I'd have to double check the website on that. But if you just need a looping video player, these here are probably your best bet for convenience and for price. So take a look at those when you get a chance. So now we're going to talk about some of the add-ons and things people have created for the Sprite here. Now, 2 of these are from Fried Ideas out of Canada, these 2 here, and this is the Hydra, which was created by the same people who do the Sprite, and I just want to talk a little bit about them here so you know that they exist and what they do. So instead of this dongle here triggering one or sequential videos, what you end up with are these here. Now, this one in particular, this Sprite trigger, plugs in the same way, and it allows you to trigger up to, I believe, 8 videos across here, right? Now, these are solid state, so you have to have power. So this has to have some power running into it to trigger these relays like this. So a 12-volt signal coming into this will power this, a signal to this. Now, what's interesting about this player is, as of the recording of this video, this is the only way to have a video trigger continuously, loop continuously as a trigger. If you try to do that with the Sprite, like you leave the trigger on or pressed, it will not continuously just keep re-triggering. That is just a limitation of the hardware and a weird quirk of this one here. You can just get your video to keep looping using this by just keeping the input on. So if you need that functionality, then this is the way to go right here. Now, if you don't want to run a bunch of wires to something like this, there is also this guy here. This is the Sprite DMX adapter. And the beauty of this is it allows you to use just one wire, or 3 sets of wires, but one wire running to this, and it lets you trigger up to 200 or so videos. You can do the same thing with the Sprite using an Arduino or serial commands. Serial commands also allow you to trigger multiple videos, right? So this thing has the ability to trigger a lot of media. And having the DMX player allows you to do that as well. And so you just wire this up via your typical DMX, run it to your system, and if you go into, if you're using the Fright Ideas FlexMax controller or something like that, there is a protocol for this already set up in the DMX fixtures, and I'll show you how to use that here in a little bit. So this plugs in the same way, just like this, and then it goes in, and do have to set a DMX address on the board right here using this button. But that, of course, is told to you in the instructions and how to do that, no problem. So that is one of my favorite ways to trigger videos with the Sprite. So, fun fact, after we filmed that last segment there, it turns out that they stopped making the version of the DMX dongle you saw and started making this version here. So, decided to wait and also add this to the list of things here. As you can see, there are a few differences. It has Ethernet ports here on top and bottom instead of having to splice wires and screw them into place, but it works pretty much the exact same as the other thing. You program the DMX address through the button here. You can also do it through the program itself. You can go in through the director program that comes with these things if you want to set the DMX address as well, but beyond that, it works the exact same. You plug it into the I/O port on the back here, set this to serial, and let it go. However, I just wanted you guys to see that this different module has come out, and if you have either one of them, I'm going to show you real quick how to put them into your director program and where they're located in the DMX layout so you know how to set these up. We're going to add the DMX device thing here into this. So I go down here, click on that, go to DMX device. We're going to go under Fright Ideas like this, and then all the way to the bottom to Sprite DMX. And it has one channel like this. Now you need to make sure, of course, that the DMX address is set properly on your dongle there. So right click on Sprite DMX, and you can see here DMX address 5 through 5, or just hit how do I set DMX address? It'll tell you it is DMX address 5. So you would set your DMX Sprite interface for that using either the DMX device editor or the button on the Sprite Player, Sprite plugin. So to command videos to play, what's going to happen is I'm going to right click here on the timeline. You'll notice it says 0, no command, right? So nothing happens. If I right click, I go to cursor function and I get all of these things. Look at all these videos that I could decide to play, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'll say play file 001. Now, whenever I paint with this, that is my trigger right there. That's how that works. Let's say I wanted to do something a little further down the line there. I would hit like play file 40, like that. And now you can see here I do this. So what will happen is the Sprite Player will play right here, and it hits that in the timeline. It'll hit 001, or it'll hit whatever here, and it'll trigger that. You can also set this up in a behavior as well. You can come under here and go control DMX channel, Sprite 1, set value to any number of these right here. You can even play the looping 000 file again. And I could tell it to come here and do this for 0.50 seconds to trigger it, so I don't have to worry about releasing it and doing all that stuff, right? So that's because I don't have this defined. But that is how you set up and use the Sprite Player DMX, the new and the old version. And now we're going to look at the Hydra. So the Hydra is an add-on that allows you to do a bunch of different things with the Sprite Player. We did do a spotlight video on this on one of our other videos, and we'll link that in the description and up above here on the video. And so what the Hydra does is it has a bunch of different modes. It has so many modes, all the modes, the Edna modes, the Pyala modes, all of them. They're all in there. And so you can turn this into a game controller without having any other controller necessary, right? Because this has inputs and outputs built into it. So you can have video trigger, but also have things light up or things move or open or triggering relays that do other stuff. You can also run 2 Sprite players through this. So let's say you have 2 windows set up. It allows you to have like one window interacting with another window and talking to each other in sync and everything like that. And so you would plug this in to your I/O system here like this. And then you would wire this up in however you need to, and depending on the mode, you can have the video progress through a story. So as different things trigger, you would have a video that would, you go from looping file to a video, to a new looping file, to a video, or you have a thing where you push a button, a video plays, and when you push the right sequence, and after you do that correctly, then a success video plays. Like I said, there is a lot of modes, and I encourage you to look through the instruction manual on all the stuff that this thing can do, because it has allowed some really cool functionality in games to be done with a Sprite Player here. And so all you need is one of these and plug it in and you're good to go. Continuing on the tour of cool things you can hook up a Sprite to, this little board here kind of came out under the radar a while back. It is the Serial Splitter SS-38, and what this was for is created for when you need to have multiple sprites triggered at once for things like the Santa's elevator experience that came out a few years ago. That was on the internet, people have seen, and what this is for is to be able to hook up multiple sprites together here, like this, right? So you would plug it into this port here, you'd plug this one into this port here, and then of course to get these to trigger and sync up at the same time, you would just plug this in here like you would the I/O connection on this, and you run your wires to it, and it'll trigger 8 sprites at the same time, or you can daisy chain multiples of these and have lots of televisions and lots of sprites triggering at once. So if you have a need for that and needs your video to sync very well together, which these Sprite 4Ks do apparently, then this board might be what you've been looking for but didn't know existed. Most of the time, a Sprite Player will be used to be triggering just 1, maybe 2 videos, but usually it's 1 video from a looping file or something like that. But if you find yourself needing something more, let's say using RFID, and you need to trigger multiple videos, sometimes hundreds of videos, you might want to look into something like this. This is the Knabe Labs RFID add-on for the Sprite that allows you to trigger videos based on the RFID tags with the number on the tags, right? So if you have a tag that is labeled, 001, you touch it to here, it plays 001. If you have a tag that has 255, it'll play a video labeled 255, something like that. So this enables you to have 1 input point, but play lots of videos in whatever necessary configuration you need, right? And now you will need something else that goes along with this to kind of get it to work. You're going to need this thing here. This is an RFID tag programmer right here. And these, you can get these online, and what's interesting about them is they read a bunch of different tags and a bunch of different frequencies. They read 125 kilohertz, they read NFC, they read all these other weird ranges in between, right? And the way it works is pretty easy. You take an RFID tag, such as like this little disc here, and I can scan, and it'll scan through the different types and it'll find what it is. I can also just read it, which I just did there, and I've read the tag. But you can also program tags with this. Now, you do need a very particular kind of tag. There are two kinds of rewritable RFID tags. There are the kind that are writable for use with cell phones and things like that you can write information into, and so like you tap a business card against your phone and it'll bring up a website, things like that. But what you specifically need for these is UID rewritable to get that to work, all right? So that's the first thing you're gonna need to know. And so when you get these tags here, and I can link to some of these down in the description there, what you're gonna do with this little device here is you're gonna put input like this, and you're gonna type out the number. Now, the number is very easy. You just basically add the Sprite will ignore all the leading zeros on the thing here, so all you need is whatever the last couple are, right? So if I just need a 1, there you go. It's just looking for 001 right here on the tag, right here. It ignores all these other zeros. And so I can take this, lay it on top of here. Actually, hold on, I hit this, and it goes, cool, right to it. I hit the right button. It has now written this tag successfully as 001. And I could do that with any other types of tags. I could make this, 050. I could make this 155, whatever. And so having this thing enables you to unlock a lot of possibilities to play lots of different types of videos on your Sprite Player. So if you need that kind of functionality, just head over to claboverstock.com and push that little order button and get yourself one of these setups yourself. Now you may be looking at this and going, all right, what's going on? What is this? Well, what this is the Sprite 4K has a firmware update that came out a while back that enables you to use a barcode scanner to trigger videos with, right? And because this is a 5-volt system, and it has 2 USB things on the front. You can, if you're using a USB stick here or something, you plug this in and it'll power this up, as you can hear there. And you can scan items, which will then trigger videos, which is very interesting. And this works similarly to the Knabe Labs RFID thing I showed you earlier with the tags that say 000 whatever on there. This is the similar thing. You can create your own barcodes, and just as long as the barcode is programmed to just have the last 3 digits be whatever your video tag is, it works just fine. And the inches, so I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna scan this, and you'll hear a beep, boom. And now video 001 would play, right? And the one thing you have to make sure that you do with this in particular type of interface is you need to make sure that it has the ability to essentially scan and then press enter. And the way I did that with this one is the company who manufactures it gives you barcodes that let you program the barcode scanner. So I would hit like a barcode that would put it into a programming mode, then I hit another barcode that would basically say, oh, hit enter. Because normally what these are used for is you're scanning an item and it's going into an Excel sheet or it's going into some sort of database. And sometimes you need to have a new line every time you do it. So by programming this to hit enter, what it's doing is it's reading the tag here, or the tag, I should say, the barcode, the video file, and hitting enter over here, which causes the video to play. So if you're going to do this, make sure your barcode scanner, or whatever scanner you're using, has the ability to press enter, essentially. And I will leave a link to whatever the brand this is here. This is a Symbol brand here that we got. And that way, if you want to check out this particular brand, you know it works. Just like that. So one of the things I will recommend is always be checking every so often the Sprite firmware user manual, because when they update the user manual, they'll usually say what the firmware version is. And just be looking out for new updates and new features that kind of get snuck into these that you may or may not know about. So hopefully you find that useful. Finally, here is a fun little bonus thing that you may not know exists, so I wanted to tell you about it. This is a DTMF relay board or decoder. And what that is, DTMF is dial tones, right? And that's how some old animatronics used to work, is it would use dial tones hidden in the left channel of some audio, and it would trigger things to do stuff, right? It's kind of old school analog technology. And so you can buy these little relay boards. This is a 4-channel here, and your audio will go into here. You plug this in, and when it hears a dial tone, it will trip one of the relays based on which dial tone it hears. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is a video of me testing it here. I'll show you that. And the reason for that was this last Halloween, I decided to test this out for myself with a setup I had in our yard where I would have a trigger of a video playing on our screen, on our window, and the video player and the projector was in the house, but I also wanted a speaker running outside and running audio, and I didn't want to try to sync up the audio and the video at the same time, because sometimes things can get out of sync, and trying to start things at the right time can be a little bit of a problem. But what I was able to do instead was have a video playing, and then when the dial tone would play on one channel, which is why I have this splitter here, my audio went out one channel here to one speaker, and then this channel here would be the dial tone, so it would only hear the dial tone. Otherwise, you have to have all the audio on one side in the right channel and the dial tones on the left, like that. So then this would hear the dial tones and it would trigger these, which would then trigger the animations outside the window with the video. So they always synced up, they always matched up and things like that. And High-Res Designs also has something, they have their own version of this. It is their relay decoder, and they have videos that have the trigger sounds built in already. And so here's an example of a really cool idea I saw online one time. Somebody had made a video of a girl, and next to the television was a lit candle, a real lit candle, and the girl would turn and blow at the candle, and the candle would go out. And that was all timed with the relay board that they had, and a little air pump on the back of the television that the video knew when to trigger this to turn on the air pump and just blow out the candle. So if you need to match up animations to your videos and just don't want to deal with a show controller of some sorts, you can get these little boards here, and it allows you to do some cool animations with your videos. Well, I hope you learned something about some of these video players here, which one will work for you, which one is best for you, and maybe even some new stuff that you didn't even know about existed or that these could possibly do. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to us at testsubjects.com, and we'll hope to see you in the next video. Hey guys, make sure you check out some of these other videos we have here, and of course if you want to keep up with anything we're doing, make sure you subscribe, click the bell, and make sure you also check out testsubjects.com for more info. And if you have something very specific you want us to go over, please let us know in the comments below. See you next time.